And it's a different type of integration, though. To me, it's like I don't know. Yesterday, I woke up, I couldn't get out of bed for like an hour, and but today I wasn't like physically, uh, you know, debilitated or whatever that word is, debilitated. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just I don't know, just a lot of different type of integration to me. It just feels different. How you been?
I've
What's
been good.
happening?
Very
Yeah,
good.
where are you at now?
Just kind of in that rural place where we live now.
Which is
Couple
where?
hours, almost a couple hours outside LA.
Oh yeah, south or inland?
North.
Oh, north. So you're up
Yeah.
near what? San Luis or what is it?
Oh no, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that would be no. Okay, so more from there, more west,
Oh,
and
you're
it's
west.
so yeah. The town is it's near Tehachapi. We say Tehachapi, but we're actually bordering it, and people don't usually know what it is. I just say if you know where Lancaster is, it's another 40 miles in.
Okay. So is it like a park or what is it?
No, so you remember we're living in that RV,
Yeah.
and well, we own some land in Tehachapi, so we're living on the land, and it's the kind of space where it's 4,000 elevation, so you get a little snow, but we only see 2 or 3 cars all day because we live off a dirt road, and the only other people that live off it hardly see them. Downtown's like 8 miles away, so we just get to listen to ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah,
How
it's really
cool
nice.
is that? So do you have like a septic tank and a water well, or you're all self-contained?
We're doing some what do they call it? Oh, word escapes me. Where it's very the natural way right now. We're going to move to septic.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
you're doing compost.
that's
Compost.
it. Compost.
Okay. And then for water, what do? Catch your water or what?
We haven't caught any yet, but we're bringing it in and different ways, and we're working on that too. That's always evolving,
Mm.
but very simple. Very, we feel like
Oh,
frontier people.
no kidding. Is it how many acres do you have?
5.
Oh wow. That's very cool. Yeah.
And it's a land that we feel very connected to. We've had past lives on that sort of thing,
I
and
I
there's a lot of magic.
I actually have a friend that lives there. Now that I think about it.
Oh yeah,
Uh, so what's the name of the place that you're at?
Tehachapi,
How do you spell that?
Tehachapi,
There it is.
Chapi, something like that.
Yeah, let me just look on here real quick. I think we're live and getting started now, but let me just look on the map.
Sure.
I want to make sure I know. I, I'm going to have to introduce you to her because she's a very powerful sister.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's where she's at. Yeah, she's out that way.
Okay.
Absolutely. Morgan and I drove through there. In fact, yeah, that's where she's at. Her name is Yvette Goulet. She's been on a few times. She's a very old and original, member of Soulogy. She's been around probably since like 2015 or 14, maybe. But
Okay.
yeah, she's a very powerful lady. She's very connected to the community over there as well. So she'd be a good contact for you.
Okay.
I'll
Good.
do that. I'll hook you guys up. So are you there? Are you there now? Are you in
We're
your?
nearby. I'm at a temporary undisclosed location at the moment.
Okay. All right. All right. Trying to stay
Yeah.
off the grid. Yeah. Who's that? Maria? Hey,
No,
Maria.
Alexa. This place has an Alexa in it that we weren't prepared for.
Okay. Cool.
It's like interesting.
So you've been busy. I've been, keeping track of you here and there when I jump on to share post, and I've seen you've been pretty busy. I know you were involved with oh god, the names are escaping me. God, the guy that
Oh, I thought you were going to say radiance. That didn't escape you.
no. I know the Radiance. Yeah, I got that one. Who is the guy? Yeah, God, I can see his face. The thing that went on in Portal to Ascension. Portal to Ascension.
Oh, Neil Gar or
Neil
Alan?
Gar, yeah. Yeah, Neil Gar. I saw you were also. I think were you involved in something else that was in Colorado, or was
Oh,
it
yeah. Well, I went to Gaia Studios.
Gaia Studio? They're in
Maria and I.
Colorado. I didn't, yeah.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
out
okay.
just in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
My contact there. we got a tour of the place. We saw, you got them right here. By the way, if you want to read Radiance for free, it's at radiancemm.com. Everybody.
There you go. Yeah.
Radiance MM. We saw Hancock was there doing a weekend presentation. So we got to see that as well. And
yeah, I saw that's right.
Place.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So you just drove up there and found a place to shack up and that's cool.
We did an Airbnb. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. You said that you had some meat for the show today. I'm excited to hear about that.
That's good. Yeah. Well, it's funny because we've had a lot of these discussions as far as sacred union and twin flames, and it's funny that by the way, how are you and Morgan doing?
We're good. We're good. I mean, obviously she's in Australia and I'm over here, but other than that, that's can't complain.
Well, it's funny because we talk about these things. We talk about Heros Gamos and all these things, and twin flames. We both didn't like that expression for a while, and then kind of came back to it when we saw some definitions that kind of work for us. But I think that's true of people who are just evolving in these times, these interesting, challenging times, and you kind of. Even in people too. I'm sure there's people you follow and then you don't follow them for a while and you come back to them because it just resonates now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing the work as you can imagine, as you know, and we've had some discussions in the past, and it's I'm here to say that I'm glad we got out to this property where it's us and. That presents its own challenges in a lot of ways. It's like, okay, it's us. There's no distractions. There's not things. We found that when we would go visit back down in Orange County or LA County and just kind of get into, we'd realize, suburbia really has become like the cities. I mean, there's so much energy. There's so much density. There's so much going on. And the weather's great. It's amazing. And I can see, and that's why a lot of people come to a place like Southern California. But wow. It's just the density. And that's why, we're always encouraging ourselves and everybody get out to nature anyway, anytime you can. It's a real easy thing not to do. And yet I know I got to take off my shoes and socks and put my feet in the dirt or the grass and ground and have nature meditate me. It's so easy to do that. And I get to do a lot of it now and it makes a difference. So yeah, we're out here, we're doing our thing and, coming up across everything. And I mean, everything. I mean, every aspect of my personality, every aspect of what I grew up with my conditioning. And honestly, in suburbia, I found ways that I could sidestep those things. A lot of those things didn't have to deal with them. Just turn on a movie. Could just turn on or do this or distract myself with this or that. There's so many distractions. But of course, being in a relationship, a sacred union relationship, which I don't know, I define as two people who are, there's so many definitions, who really, let's just say we're in the relationship because it helps expand ourselves.
Right.
And as soon as you're not expanding anymore in a relationship, it's probably over. Maybe I won't make that judgment for anyone's relationship, but for me, that's what I believe, what resonates. And man, we just keep growing, expanding. And I think of you and Morgan a lot because with the separation, the physical separation that you guys have, which is only physical. I know you connect in so many ways, in beautiful and profound, mystical ways. And we have found we too need separation at times, big time.
Right. Absolutely.
We even put another structure on the land so that we could have that other space, just a trailer. And it works great. And I'm here to say there is nothing wrong with it at all. And someone saying, "Yay!" There really isn't anything wrong with it because a lot of what I used to think love was really just 3D stuff, was stuff I saw repeated, was stuff I saw in movies maybe, or stuff I incorrectly got from my parents, or from my relationship with my father or mother. And it, so for instance, here's a for instance. I might say something, and I would kind of want maybe a little 3D response from Maria, just a little,
Hmm.
give me a little sugar, give me a little something. She's not, what she's going to say? She's going to say, hey, how does that feel in your body?
Mm.
I'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what really matters. It doesn't matter that I'm going to get a little,
Mm.
tickle, if you will, of this or that in a 3D sense. It's like, no, 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 hold on. With what I'm working with, how does that feel in my body? Because we all know the body is a big truth meter. It knows before we do, usually. It knows before our mind does what's up. And that's a far better question, because I've not been in touch with my body
So,
enough, as much as I'd like to have been in the past. And that's why, hey, I had cancer twice, and I don't believe I'll get it a third time, because I am much more in touch with my body now.
wow, that's
And
powerful.
that's, yeah.
It's powerful. It's
So,
like the body's your own personal Akashic, right?
yes,
You know.
yeah. And it's a truth meter. It's right there, and just tuning in. So one of the gifts that moving to a more rural area has given me is the ability to hear myself
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Well, that's the great thing about nature, even just like stepping out here in my backyard where I got a little forest and a dry riverbed that filled up
Yep.
with water a couple of days ago, which was actually kind of cool.
That
And
is.
snowing and icing now. Um, but yeah, because you don't have to really try. I mean, you can connect, and I do, but a lot of times you're just being out there, sitting there quietly, and the meditation comes to you, right? It's not even, and in the city,
Yep.
obviously there's so many different distractions. And I even find it here. I've had this ongoing thing started in January with my television, because I'll turn
Mm.
it on while I'm working or eating, or
Mm-hmm.
occasionally when I'm relaxing, or if I want to look around and see what's happening on different platforms. And so I had this period where it actually shut down. It shut down for about a week. It wouldn't come on. I could push the button and I'd change the batteries, wouldn't come on. And
Mm-hmm.
so last night, I had a pretty productive day yesterday. I was doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I had, I think, 2 shows, and then I was just working on some different things that I wanted to start working on. And then I sat down to have a snack, and I
Mm.
turned on the TV, and I'm about 5 minutes, 10 minutes into this video, which was metaphysical related, and all of a sudden the TV did this weird thing, and it said powering off, and it just turned off, and I thought, well, I've seen this enough to know that I'm not supposed to have it on,
Yeah.
and so
Exactly.
I just respected it and
Go with it.
haven't turned it on since, but
It's an interesting thing to just to turn things off, stop, and listen, and see how long you can do that, and note nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong, but just noting that, and
Hmm.
it you could figure out pretty quickly that it's a good thing. It's a thing to expand that
Yeah.
time being with yourself, and learning how to be with yourself,
Hmm.
and be alone without your phone. Like, what's the longest you've gone without your phone? I remember I did it for a couple hours recently, and it felt like a really big deal.
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah.
I've done it for a few hours during the day. Um,
Mhm.
I try not to do it at night, just in case, it doesn't happen, but just in case like Morgan needs to call or something, I'll leave it.
Sure.
I'll leave it on. But yeah, and the other thing you were saying about Maria, so like this, I think part of what's happening too with this, this expanding awareness that we're all having, which is why do we do the things we do? And there's
Yeah.
a whole, pattern between, in many different aspects of our lives, but like in relation to what you're talking about, like, I want to say typical or stereotypical things that men do or women do. Uh, yeah, and like you said, you do one thing, you're expecting a response from the old paradigm.
Yes.
She has the wherewithal to say, I'm not going to answer that way,
That's right.
which then creates the self introspection into yourself, which is, oh, I was expecting something, and then it's, well, wait a minute, why did I even do what I did? what's at the root of that? Is
That's right.
it abandonment? Is it
Hmm.
clingy? Whatever the case is. So
Yes.
yeah, and I think a lot of these things are coming up for everybody, obviously. And it's
Yes.
in the in the personal inquisition that really, I think, counts. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said. People look at these couplings that are occurring,
Mhm.
and we all have had this. I think from the old paradigm, this whole grass is greener thing. But everything comes with the full polarity. Everything comes with the yin and the yang. So sometimes I put a post up a couple days ago, which was like, it doesn't matter how close you are to your better angels if you're not equally as close to your lesser ones. I find
I
that the
saw that. Yeah.
shadows,
Mhm.
especially these last, and I think for a lot of people, as the shadows have come out with this, kind of in line with the COVID thing the last couple of years. But
Mhm.
like the shadows to me are the most valuable aspect of my relationship with myself, obviously with her, and really as I'm starting to expand that into other people, and not and bring down the walls that I have that I might disguise as boundaries. It's is my own, declaration of sovereignty or whatever the case is. I understand that the boundaries are boundless, and it's sooner or later they all come down, all the walls come down, all the boundaries go away, and I really take that on pretty seriously. But what's helped me with that is to see the shadow, obviously in myself, in my in with my partner, and to really see the value, but also now to be able to carry it over to people that I interact with, uh, in both retrospect of our previous engagements as well as what's going on now, and start to say, hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute, maybe I can put myself in their shoes and seek to understand, versus trying to be understood, as the
Yes.
priority. Reverse it.
Oh, if I'm wanting to be understood, that means I have an agenda that's usually ego driven, and that's going to be messy. There's going to be suffering. There's going to
Mm,
be you know righteousness. It's from my personal experience in my
mm,
dealings.
mm.
But if I am clear, if there is nothing that I want because I remember who I really am and I
Mhm.
remember what is, then I can hold space. Then I could
Yeah.
just be. Or before I
Yeah.
even get to the holding space, maybe the person doesn't need space held, but maybe I'm just going to just be.
Yeah.
And then what would love do now? Whatever it is that you got, whatever intention I would set for that is a beautiful thing. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sharpen my sword on anybody or do anything um, it's just wonderful because again, if I remember who I am, I'm a spark of the infinite. I'm God, however you want to say it, anywhere in between those two statements. Um, I inhabit my higher self as much as I can and at that time and go, oh, that's right. There's whatever just got me butt hurt there for a minute was come on, that's the human. It's okay. It's like, okay, well, but when I remember who I am, you can't be hurt. You can't get,
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
what
I
would you
think
do?
too, like, what's been coming in for me, and I think this has been coming in for a lot of us. I mean, we talk about unconditional love a lot,
Mm,
and it's a concept until it's a experienced reality, right? Like you gotta put the effort out and reach for it to really get it, or begin
with
getting it,
yourself
or
first, right?
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, 100%. No doubt about that at all. But it takes to me, it takes the thinking out of it. I mean, like, especially with the
Yes.
shadow thing. I mean, with the shadow thing, it's like, oh, okay, so you can see the shadow now. Talking to myself. You can see the shadow now, and you understand that it's the same as the light. Let's just say, but then can you actually look at people and say, I love you unconditionally? No, there's no change in how I feel, regardless of what's presented to me. Now, if something's presented to me, rather than trying to work it out and figure it out and overcomplicate it in the process, I just go to this space now. I'm starting to. And I think it's got to be something that must be taking hold. I can't be the only one. That I just say, I love this person. I love that person. I love that
Mm.
person. Pull
Yeah.
up people from my past, mother, father, so on. I just love you unconditionally. Period. And that's all I got to say. And that's it. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds a little bit like, oh, that's pretty easy. No, it's not. For me, it's a process of repetition, and has been for a long time. It's just evolved to this point now where instead of going into the dialogue, I just go, I absolutely love you unconditionally, period, in this story. And I got to
Well,
stick with that.
well, someone who deals in words like you do, and as I do, all these words pass through me, even though they're mostly written by contributors.
Yeah.
I actually get to a point where I've said sometimes, Maria, I will say something very brief, and I'll say, "There's more I could say, but I don't want to try because it'll take away from you." And I
Yeah.
know you're feeling me right now. You're in my field, and the energy is there. So I'm just going to let that speak.
Mm.
Because trying to explain some of these things, it doesn't do it justice. Eckhart Tolle talks about how we are addicted to thoughts, to thinking.
Mm.
And that is a weird thing for all of us to confront at some level. What do you mean addicted to thinking or thoughts? Hold on. That's, because, and for those people who are meditating, who want to experience more expansion, maybe even communicate with our galactic brethren, you have to learn to get out of the head and get into the heart space and be there. Because I saw a cartoon recently that you might have posted it. It showed somebody showed a UFO with a tractor beam pulling somebody up, and the person was saying things like, "So if I put one hand outside the tractor beam, is the hand going to stay behind? If I do this, if I do that," and then the alien just went, "Never mind," and just dropped them off because they're just yeah.
Well, we were talking to Mary Rodwell last night, and she was talking about it was different things, but she was saying in terms of like some of the interactions she's had with clients in regard in
I
so
love
there's
Mary
been like,
Rodwell. She's awesome.
yeah, she's incredible. But like this, she said there's been like kind of an uptick in people trying to connect to their multi-dimensionality.
Yep.
People, she cited a couple of 2, 3 examples of people having, I guess, like galactic interactions, including being taken on a ship and such. And she said something like at some point in that context of just feel rather than trying to see what they look like. Just feel what their energy brings, because that's really where the language is. And I think the same holds
Yes.
true for all of our relationships, regardless of what they are, because
See?
there's only really one common denominator between them all, which is this thing that we identify as unconditional love or unity consciousness or whatever it is. But
Sure.
but that's a very much a felt thing, and I think that the dialogues can get I think they're very necessary to get us to a certain point, and then at some point you realize, hey, yeah, we got this kind of deal. We got this. I mean, I feel what you feel for me, you feel what I feel for you, and there's a certain continuity there that we can move forward with. Yeah.
Yes. And it's, I mean, if you're on your deathbed, are you in your head or in your heart? Maybe
Yeah.
a little of both, but the heart is where so if we look from that point of view, and just hold that and give up. I like to use the word addiction, works from addiction to these thoughts and thinking and ways of and our belief systems.
Hmm.
Letting them go is such a gift to ourselves, but you have to look at your shadow. You have to see what's there and
Yeah.
what's been
Yeah.
created. And I get that opportunity to do that in an active sacred union, if you will.
Yeah.
And sacred union, at some level might sound kind of romantic or something. And it certainly has that, but it's work because it's on yourself and the things that polite society doesn't address. And we get away with in polite society. We get to slide all the time with this stuff, but you're not really, because when you see the changes getting made and then you go to a family gathering, you have a conversation with a mother, a sister, an aunt, a daughter, you see the changes that are happening because you're not the same. You're not the same person. You're not willing to participate in the same energies that you did
Right.
before, whether it's gossip or what have you, or talk that brings you down, that insults yourself, even if it's in joking, in jest.
Right. Right.
And because our words are prayers, our spells, however you want to say it, and it means something. So that's a hard one because I like to joke. I like to make jokes,
Yeah.
and
Sarcasm is going away. That's one of the things that,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's passive aggressive, right?
Well, and
It's
it's
like
judgmental. It's judgmental.
mhm,
It's sanctimonious. Let's face it. I
yeah,
mean, and it is a tough habit to break if you like to be funny. I mean, but I've actively been working on this for 3 or 4 years, and I still, have to catch myself and go, you're an asshole. I mean, you don't need to say that or whatever. But I think for everything that's been experienced the last couple of years, the one big thing that I think is kind of equalizing everybody
mhm,
is the shadow and the value of the shadow, the sacredness of the shadow, and the scariness of the shadow, kind of going hand in hand because every time we step into one, it's an unknown quantity. It's an unknown factor. But one of the things I think that people could agree on is that uh, as we've gone through these waves, which tend to bring light to the shadow, we can kind of be in the middle of the wave and go, man, I know it's kind of rough now, but I know when I get to the other side, there's going to be a lift, and
yes.
that doesn't seem to have failed us. It seems like that's the way it works. So,
Well, yeah, you
what?
have to remember that because when you're in the distortion,
Hmm,
you're not feeling great. You're feeling
right.
like a victim. I'm looking outside and I'm going, that person's an a-hole. That person's an a-hole. And
Hmm.
you know, that's because we're in that and we're seeing life from that perspective. We've forgotten who we
Yeah.
are. We
Yeah.
dropped into that pit, and getting the skills to learn how to work in that space and not get as triggered. Or if you get triggered, okay, let me work with this. Or telling your mate, let me go take a time out.
Yeah.
Let me go, meditate. Let me go work on this and let me follow this through. Um, yeah, that's the work.
And
That's
really that should be encouraged and really supported.
and taught in schools.
It's nothing personal. It's just no judgment. Just and I think maybe we're getting to that point where, because look, let's face it, there is a direct relationship between contemplating the shadow
Mhm.
and, like you just said, victim consciousness. Right? I mean, there's a direct relationship. If I
Yeah.
see a shadow coming and I don't want to go into it, because you know how
Mhm.
it works now, that shadow's not going to go away. It's
Mm-mm.
going to hang right there, and I can either jump into it and, or I can go into what? Victim consciousness, because that shadow is only going to be seen one of two ways. It's either going to be seen as what it is eventually, and we'll have to go there, which is to dive into it and find the gold. Um, but if I ignore it, then there's only one narrative that's going to hold it off, which won't be for long, especially with these energies. But you know what I mean?
Well, it's by design. The shadow is there to help us
Hmm.
expand and move forward
Hmm.
and progress. What just came to me was the idea of I've seen these videos of these mountain climbers, or whether they're in a real mountain or they're in one of those places where they're getting that handhold and they're grabbing onto it and they
Yeah.
fail and they fall. It's like, no, that's the one. Do whatever it takes. Well, why are you falling? Why are you failing? What's going on? And then you work up to. And by the way, you've done this before. You got this high because you nailed some other handholds down there. You succeeded. You conquered them. You got through them, and now it's time for this one. Even though it feels like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. I'm gonna die if I can't. You have these
Mm-hmm.
extreme 3D thoughts, but it's like, no. Remind yourself you've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Have your support group if you need it, or your partner for support, and to remind you that this is just another step. And then asking someone for that support and say, okay, I'm kind of in this space. I'm in a weird space. I know I can move forward. Can you hold space for me? Can you do this or that? But ultimately, learning how to do it within ourselves, not needing from it. And that's what I think the true value, of
Mm-hmm.
course. Well, one of the values of a sacred union relationship is turning you back in on yourself, to
Yeah.
unify the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine inside of you, to unify what's not whole inside of you and become whole and heal the human parts so you can rise higher and remember more who you are. And to do all this, you got to be conscious. You have to be, for myself right now, my goal is just to be conscious the whole day.
Right.
All the time. Because if I'm ever going to feel insulted or feel someone can insult me, it's because I went to sleep. I wasn't conscious. I forgot who I was. And I went back into old programming, which is super easy to do because I was a nice guy that way. And it got me through life and got me to this point, but it's not enough. It was just enough to get me to this point, but now living a conscious life, and you can play with however you want to do it. This is a video game, and I'm in control, and I'm following my highest excitement. And whenever I do that, however you want to do it, I do it different ways at different times. Is gratifying. Is why we're here, to have these experiences, to expand us. It's about the journey. We've been hearing that since we were kids. It's about the journey. It's about the journey. It really is. These goals we set for ourselves, these skills, these gifts we came in with to do. It's about the journey. It's about what it takes to complete those things and who you meet along the way and how it expands you. Enjoying that and remembering that that's what it's really about. You got to turn off the TV to remember this stuff. You got to get off the computer or the phone to remember this stuff, because usually those messages aren't coming from those devices.
Yeah. And I think by the same token, we've got to get off of where we're going from here. Meaning, what happens when we die? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just as much of a distraction. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to go to my home planet, or I'm going to, I don't know. I still don't know. I watched an incredible, a little clip from, do you know who Harry Dean Stanton is?
Of course, that actor.
Okay. So he's an actor,
Paris,
musician,
Texas.
been around for years. And he just made a movie. I think it's probably a year old. And I don't know the name of it, but I didn't watch the whole movie. I saw a clip. And actually, he was being interviewed on the set. That's what it was. And so the guy was asking him, what do you think happens? Now, he's 87 years old, still smoking cigarettes. And his outlook, his perspective was unique to himself in that it contained his personality, which I believe is, in at least in my take, is there's a certain connection to the soul itself. There's a certain uniqueness in the soul that we could kind of maybe classify as personality or personal traits or whatever. Sure. And but he was just saying, no, I don't think so. In other words, I don't give it any thought. I'm 87 years old. I'm happy to be walking around, still doing what I'm doing. I get a little time. I still smoke a cigarette. It was just such a very present kind of look at, or outlook. And I was just like, wow. Here we are in these light worker circles, starseed circles, and we got missions and this and that. And here's a guy who's totally, in my opinion, at peace with himself, at peace with his life, being with who he wants to be with, and doing what he wants to do, which is to make art, make movies, make music and such. And I was like, wow, that was just like, a real eye opener for me.
I appreciate that. And I have an expanded view from there. And anyone who's read the last, Radiance comes out every 2 months. Anyone who's read the last 6 months, last 3 issues or so of Radiance has seen what's in there, probably has an idea of where I land on this. So I've seen the movies, What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Beautiful afterlife movie. There's that Scandinavian one that starts out in hell or some version of it. Anyway, Astral City, great movie. And
really,
but Astral City, definitely see that movie. Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks. But when I took pieces from all those, but when I read The Afterlife of Billy Fingers,
right,
that resonated with me the most, and it just went, and it's a great book to pick up on Kindle, so he's talking to his sister. He passed, and his sister is writing this book and sharing this information. And to me, reading that and having it just swim through me as it did, as the truths that I would hold in it, it makes a difference in my life now. And what it is, and to answer your question, what's going to happen? Whatever you want. And
Mm-hmm.
Bashar said that too. Bashar said, whatever you want. You can go on and be part of your soul group. You could be a guardian angel. You could be this. You could run around. But what I believe happens is, and I believe that particular heaven where, and this is going to be bracing for people who have some visions of heaven that are traditional. So I know my mom won't be seeing this, so she won't be upset by it with her traditional views. But it's there's a heaven where you can see the people you miss. You can see the dog that died when you were young, and all those things. But he said, look, when you die, there is you can do what you want. You can see those people, but there is nothing you are wanting for, because you realize you are one.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the one. You are all. Love is everywhere. There is nothing you are lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So the person you want to see, or they're there. They're in this. They're in the field, in the stream, if you will. You can experience that at any level you want. But now you're expanding more and more. Now you're part of the universe. And in the book, Billy Fingers, he says you don't lose that spark of yourself, of who you are. You don't just. It's not just the raindrop going into the ocean water and just being lost. There
Mm-hmm.
still is that, because the universe still wants to experience itself through you.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're coming back to, now you're a young Chinese girl, you're a Chinese girl in 1950, you went back in time, or you're in the future, you do whatever it is, it's because you wanted it. It's because you wanted to experience certain things in a life, so their life has been provided for you. So I know some people will say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I want this to end. And it's like, why do you think it's going to end? What about the universe? And I understand feeling tired. I felt tired. I understand feeling beat down. I've felt beat down, and it's like, really, but that's where trust comes in too. Trust is huge. And who am I trusting in? Myself, because that's me. I'm that. You're that. It's,
Right.
So it's having that. And by the way, and yes, I don't call it a belief. I call it a knowing. And in these knowings, they feed me. They empower me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say anyone who has a knowing or beliefs or whatever you want to call them, if they empower you, go for it. Ride that. Follow your excitement. What, are you going to follow my excitement? No, follow your excitement. And what you know to be true. Don't listen to anybody else. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of with Radiance, if pride's the right word, is it's all about, every writer, everyone advertising in it is about allowing people to find the message in them, to find the light in them, not to listen to someone else outside of them, any guru that wants to control or hold people in place. It's like, no, if there's a guru, it's someone who is helping you free yourself with their teachings. And so I don't think that's what a guru does. So there's no gurus there.
Right. They show you the door. They show you the door.
Show you the door to your
Sure.
own inner guru.
Yeah.
You have a guru in you. And
I think I think in essence, we all are gurus to each other. If we use that definition, we can, I can trigger you, and that's no different than you have a session with somebody, and because both can take you to the place. I love this story Mary Rodwell tells from a couple of shows back, where she talks about she had some friends at a university, and they did a discourse of some sort, a research project that was studying the shamanic experience.
Yes.
So people that would, be under the tutelage of a shaman, and so they tracked it, what it provided for them. And so the end result was, of course, this expansive transformational experience. So then they compared that to the data that they were able to obtain from people that had, I guess you would call it abductions.
Yep.
or visitations, or they're taken to a ship, or whatever the case is, and the result was the same. So one
Hmm.
is presented as a, what might be, say, a scary episode, and the other one is more of a, I'm going to go into this and study with a shaman thing. But I think same goes here, and this isn't going back again to the value of these connections that you're seeing pop up. It is you get a more of the mirror is very close to you. So once you
Yes.
can get past the old paradigms of blame and shame, and the old patterns, and the codependent templates, and start to
Mhm.
say, wait a minute, there's a reason that, I'm interacting with this person. There's a reason that we have all these synchronicities and whatever occurrences. And you start to say, okay, and that's why I said, like what you're saying, to encourage whatever a person needs, you think of holding space,
Yep.
and maybe we should call it giving space.
Hmm.
Right. I
Sure.
mean, giving space, which could mean a person wants to be, I want to be alone, I want to just have some
Yes.
time to myself, or it could mean, but it doesn't necessarily mean to just be a sounding board. And I think it
Yeah.
more than anything, it means to recognize and acknowledge that unique space that person has, and allow that person to navigate things, heal, align, just as we all do. Because I think one of the things that runs rampant and we had a guy on a couple of days ago that was a healer, and talked about how once he healed himself, which was quite miraculous, by the way, and
Hmm.
instantaneous, that he started to heal other people. And that's
Mhm.
how he was kind of feeding himself, forgetting about himself, right?
Yes.
We're real good at, that I guess you would call like the wounded healer thing, but if you turn it around and then apply it, it's almost like the client, the client practitioner reverses is kind of how I see it. Um,
I want to
Even
address you.
like,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No,
I
no,
was going
you
to
go
say,
ahead.
you mentioned a shaman, you mentioned Rodwell and holding space.
Mhm.
I want to hit Mary Rodwell, by the way, is going to figure very prominently in the next issue, in the May-June issue
Oh,
of
cool, cool.
Radiance, because of her book, The New Human.
The new human, yeah.
It's incredible. And it's not a new, I think she wrote it in 2016, but it's extremely relevant now. And
Yeah.
it's the kids coming through, the hybrids and all that. So we're going to give that a lot of space. As far as and holding space, giving space, to me, holding space, when I say that to myself, that reminds me to get the heck out of the way, to get myself out of the way of this person or of what they need. So that's the first thing that holding space does for me. Reminds me, get my ego out of it. What I think this person should do, that's not what they want to hear right now. That's just my ego. And as far as shamans, you're probably
Especially
also
if
talking
you're a
about,
masculine. That
yes,
tends to be
sure,
that Mr. Fix-It program in the
absolutely.
masculine. Yeah.
Yep, got my tool belt on and got to take it off. Um, the shaman, you're probably talking about plant medicine as well, and abduction. It's funny you mentioned those two things, abductions, or working with our galactic brethren in some way, shape, or form. Whether you gave permission ahead of time of this life before you incarnated to say, yes, I would like to work with you and go ahead and abduct me, even though I'm going to forget and I got to remember that later. That's one scenario. It's all of it's the same to me. You work with a
Mhm.
shaman, you work with you're taking, it's all different experiences. And the main thing that I seek to remember is that they're all me.
Mhm.
Now that's the interesting part. If we are truly all one, the alien that picked me up, or that walked by my window, or the shaman, or it's all me.
Yeah.
So if I say it's all me, there's no victim anywhere, and I can embrace it more. I can work with it more, engage with it, and know that it's always for the highest and best for myself, especially with how I'll position myself. And I'll make sure that it's for the highest and best. So that's a whole different conversation, and it's a rare conversation, which you have it here, and I'm glad. That's why we can talk about that here.
Well, you bring up a good point. I'll just use the example of
Which one? I brought up like 5 good points.
Yeah, well, they're all the same, but I use the mushroom psilocybin as an
Mm-hmm.
example. I don't do that
Mm-hmm.
stuff anymore. I mean, I did, and I
Mm-hmm.
value the experiences tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time when I didn't know what I was doing, and then there was a time I understood that it was a consciousness. So I I was kind of guided to approach it from that respect in that regard. And so I communicated with it as I would the trees or, with reverence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, listening to what you're saying, what's common, what works is that I held it in reverence. I didn't just go, oh, we're going to go party. No, this is with meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You're a consciousness. You just have a different type of body than I do, or however you want to put it. But I mean, and to carry that over into those closest to us, into every other human being, right? Like to be able to carry that reverence would be the trajectory I hope that I'm on, and would be the journey that I would like to explore. Is how can I expand my love to all things, and in the process, and maybe it goes hand in hand, have a greater reverence for everything, especially those closest to me, because that seems to be where you kind of go to uni. You know what I mean? You kind of cut your teeth with those relationships closest to you.
Do you hold reverence for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think,
actually, I've never used that word in meditation. I'm going to use that.
yeah.
I'm going to work with that and see how that feels with me. Because it's a little complicated with me. I can see it's not. There's some work I need to do on that with myself.
Well, I think it's never ending for everybody. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been thinking about this very recently that you bring this up. I was thinking about the 2 years, 2011, 12, 13, when I was homeless, and I've been taken back there a lot. I guess because it's following on the anniversary. 10 years ago, this happened. 10 years ago, that happened.
Yeah.
And I see the same energies presenting themselves, which is interesting. But I started thinking about what I was doing, and I was doing some serious shadow work, serious taking on the responsibility of everything not that was happening, but that had happened. And so there was this that love affair that really started to take off with myself. Now, was it pretty? Did I feel good all the time? Did I behave accordingly all the time? No.
Mm.
This is where my reflections have been. But what I did come back with, and I have to think that there's many, many people that are on the same path. And I don't know when this happened. I would have to say this probably really started to happen probably sometime between August of last year through the present.
Mhm.
But sometime in that period, like maybe the latter part of the year, maybe the first part of this year, I really entered a space of this divine love with myself that I
Mm.
hadn't been in. Now it's not
Mm.
complete. It's not
Mm.
complete, but a reverence. But it's a very, to me, it feels like a very natural thing. It's not something I get overly excited about. It's just a very quiet, natural, calming, peaceful knowing. Use the word knowing
It's
that
beautiful.
doesn't really fit in the world that I've lived in. What I mean
Mhm.
by that is it doesn't fit in conversations, and it doesn't fit in, it's a space where anything can happen and it doesn't change.
Well, there
That's
are
the only way I can put it.
most conversations you get involved in. People are not requesting your self-love aspect, are they? They want your buy-in on some
Mm,
lower vibration thing that they want, that they are into, perhaps.
mm.
But self-love, yeah, we don't expect that kind of response. It'd be nice to have more of that and have more of those kind of conversations, which is why it's great that your show is around to do that as well, and Radiance.
Well, yes, and I think that for me, and I think that's why a lot of people are alone right now.
Mm.
I mean, spending time physically alone, and you know, when we talk about that, it doesn't have to be like 24 hours or 2 years on the streets. It can be, you know, 15 quality minutes a day. It can be, it's not to be measured linearly. But when I think back about my own situation, these were situations where everything got stripped away, uh, everything and anything.
Mm.
I literally I moved past survival because survival wasn't the same thing anymore. You know, when you don't have a house and you don't have a car, you don't have money, you don't have a job, you don't have food,
Sure.
uh, you move past survival. You go into this different space. So the divine love, if I look back in retrospect, was being able to was being in a place. It really wasn't like a search. It
Mm.
was like a place, and I was in this place where there was nobody. There was nothing. There was no
Mm.
one to feel sorry for me. There was no one to assist me.
Yeah.
And I even didn't want the assistance because somehow innately I knew I needed to cultivate this space. But it was a space where I was no matter what. Like no matter what's going on, go to jail, get in a fight, you know, whatever the
Mhm.
case was, um, I was there, and this presence was not going anywhere. And that was
Mm.
really the way I would describe it. And I was not aware of what I'm aware now.
And that's
And
separate
that's
from
what
that
we
pool of self-love you dive into sometimes too. Is that those? So these are two oases that you have
No, I
to go
think it
to?
is. What I'm saying is, I think it is that divine love. It
Okay.
just didn't feel like I thought it would.
Uh,
Okay.
sure.
It was the divine love was this very clear communication with the universe. It
Hmm.
was this peace in all situations. It was in loving everything that was, it was loving anyway,
Mm.
regardless of the unjust uh, things that might have happened,
Yeah.
unfair things. We're talking reputation. We're talking all kinds of things. Whether
Mm.
I did it, whether somebody else did it, didn't matter.
Sure.
All of that stuff just kind of went away. And I understood that in essence, it wasn't real. It wasn't me. It didn't make me. But regardless, even when I would get to the pits of hell, right? Like the
Mm.
pits of hell would be me curled up in a ball in fetal position behind a building in
Mm.
October when it's raining on me, freezing. Uh, I'd gone past the point of God, why are you doing this to me? That didn't last long at all. It was
Mm.
more of like, I know, I just I can't explain it. That's what I said.
Do you
It
see
didn't
the value
feel
of that now?
absolutely, absolutely. I do absolutely. I knew it then, but I was still
Mm.
going through so many different programs and shadows that I would for years and years, and I still do.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't like sustainable. It was flashes, flashes, flashes. Uh, but now that I look back at it, is what I'm saying. What was happening was this space wasn't like, oh, I just feel love, you know. It wasn't
Mm.
like that. It was clear communication, clear understanding, and knowing that no matter it's like being in the eye of a hurricane. Like no matter what's going on around me, like you know,
Did
uh,
it break things that needed to be broken?
well, things got broken in order to me to get there. That's what I think
Mm.
I would put it that way.
Mm.
Like I remember one night, and this was just out of the blue. Like I had no idea this was going to happen. I had a situation. I'm in a hotel. I've been in my car for 12 nights. I've been living off of Vienna sausages and 25-cent lemonades for like
Mm.
12 days in my car. I had a car
Mm.
at the time. So I'd moved up a little bit. So I went to this hotel room, very cheap hotel room, and I'm laying in bed. I'm buck naked. I've been on, you know, I was so tired I didn't even take a shower, and so I ended up laying on the bed. I got a beer, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the knock on the door, it's police. We got a felony warrant for Todd Medina. I'm like, well, what the hell? You must have the wrong room. And so they said, no, it's for Todd Medina. I'm like, well, that's me. I'm coming. So I answered the door. They break it down before I could even open it. I'm buck naked. I end up, you know. So now I'm cuffed
Mm.
and I'm on the bed. They open my briefcase and they start reading my resume. You know, national director for this company, national director for that company. What happened to you? You know, and then
Mm.
6 cops just started giving me shit, and I just started going, like, I was in that space. Like, it doesn't matter what they're saying. And I just started going into gratitude. I started blessing them. I started blessing their families. I started, you know what I mean? Like,
And
it
they knew
was,
you weren't high or anything.
well, I don't
You
know
were
what
just
they
full of
told.
love at this point.
Well, they told me I was very cooperative, and it was kind of a misunderstanding thing anyway. But
Mm.
one of the things I learned too in that period was
If I was writing the movie of your life, I'd definitely include that scene.
it was a pretty interesting one. There's a few, but I just read a story about a lady that was, gosh, very professional in LA. She gets picked up. No, she goes to the airport and she gets arrested. And somebody has her same name. She goes to jail for 12 days, LA
Okay.
County, which is that's no luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And she's telling them, "You got the wrong person. I don't have anything on my." They never checked her picture against the person that had the warrant out. They
Mm.
never checked her physical dimensions, which weren't even close. The picture would have
Mm.
shown anyway. Uh, 9 days into it, they finally, after hiring 2 lawyers, one in Texas, one in LA, they finally convinced the DA that's not her. And they say, "Okay, you're right. We'll release her." They don't release her for 3 more days. So
Mm.
what I'm trying to say is, one of the things I understood being on the streets was there's always someone that has it worse.
Oh, yes.
Always somebody that has it worse. So that was a real benefit to me, even being in the situations I was in. But my point in telling that story was, there's no way in hell I could have sat on that bed being ridiculed, given the traumas and the circumstances that I had gone through in the
Mm-hmm.
very recent few weeks and months,
Mm-hmm.
which involved a lot of death, a lot of separation, everything, literally everything stripped, everything,
Mm-hmm.
and maintain my composure if I wasn't in tune with what I'm trying to describe, that I realize now was divine love, but it
Mm.
just wasn't what I had expected. And now I can only say this in retrospect. I can't say that in that moment I was like, oh, you know, I do remember getting in the back of the squad car and hearing what I considered to be the voice of Archangel Michael saying to me, "We were cutting all the ties that bind." And I'm saying, like, apparently. So,
Okay.
you know, you know, I used to
Including
say
the cups.
I used to say to myself, the universe will put you in a place where you have no other choice. And
Yes.
I think that's essentially what facing our shadow is,
Well, if
because
our
you
higher
can
self
do it.
is constantly guiding us and nudging us where we want to go,
Yeah.
it's a ride.
So you can either do it now or you can do it later.
That's right.
That's the way I see it. Let me keep talking. I'm going to connect to our next guest. Let me see. Keep talking.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to
I
see if.
mean, I just love. I mean, I'm just curious. The energy in the room when you're cuffed naked on a bed and there's 6 cops, and they see what you're doing, and they ask you questions about, like, what do you do? What's going? What are you doing? It almost sounds
Dude,
like they're doing an intervention on you.
uh, let me tell you, there's a lot to talk about in that scenario, but you know, one of the things I'll tell you another one. I was actually had got on my feet, and I was working at a restaurant, and I was sleeping on a friend's couch.
Mm.
And so one morning I get up and I go out to the parking lot to wait for my friend to drive me to work. And there's 6 squad cars in the back of this apartment complex, and not the best apartment complex in the. And this cop walks up to me and he says, "There's a lot of drug activity here. I need to see your ID." Now, at the time, I hadn't watched enough YouTube videos. Otherwise, I would have told him to go fuck himself, but in a nice way. But
Mm.
I handed over my ID and I had a warrant. So I ended up going to the local jail, and I had in my pocket I had a container with 6 rocks in it that
Mm.
represented, actually 9 rocks in it that represented the 9 entities or energies that I had been communing with. And so I remember going in there, and and I don't know what it was. And again, I was in this place because here I am trying to get my feet on the ground, trying to get my kids back, trying to do something right from the human mental side. And then they just started making fun of me. Who in the world would carry a bunch of rocks with them? You know, like they were looking at it to see if they were crack and all that. They were
Of
just
course.
rocks. They were rocks that had come to me or whatever. And so, you know, it just going back to the whole point of it was I realized that I could not be in that space if I could not have contained my composure had I not been in that space.
Gotcha.
And I didn't see it at the time, but it was overriding all of my programming, and I was calm and cool,
Mm.
you know, which I can't really take credit for. It's just a place that I arrived to, and I'm sure by design from the higher aspects. We got to jump on to this other show. We got I got mixed up and we got back to back. It's
That's all
good
right. This was
seeing you.
great.
It's good seeing you. I
You
love
too,
you.
Todd.
I love Maria. I love what you're doing at Radiance Magazine. Can't wait to see you again. Hope it's the four of us when it happens. And
Absolutely.
but
We'll do it again.
just keep on going. And I appreciate you. You just keep on trucking, and I'll
You
see you
too,
when
my
I
man.
see you. All right, man. You
Thank you so
take
much.
care.
Love you. Much love.
Okay.
Take care.
Love you.